Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Let me introduce myself. This is Vivek Thaure, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Zoology, BDMD College, Delhi. So, in this session, we are going to study about the impact of climate change on the biodiversity. So, moving to the slides, the changes in first impact is changes in habitat and ecosystem. Climate change is disrupting ecosystem, altering habitats, and causing widespread changes in biodiversity. These changes are not only impacting individual species but also the intricate webs of life that makes up our planet. It implies that it simply means the climate change is not only disturbing the life of individual animal but it disturbs the whole habitat and the ecosystem where the organism population and the community lives. So, in arid region, desertification driven by increased temperature and drought is transforming fertile land into barren landscape and negatively affecting biodiversity. For example, in the desert, what happened? The precipitation or the rainfall is very low as compared to the previous years. So it ultimately gives and changes into a barren land. So the previously fertile land where the plants were present in a very large amount, but because of the no rainfall or the very less amount of precipitation, that is rainfall, the fertile lands are changing into the barren landscape, and that's why this negatively affecting biodiversity. Next, the impact of food webs and species interaction. Climate change can disturb food webs by affecting the timing of species interaction, leading to mismatch in predator-prey relationship and food availability. So this simply means the timing of species interaction. What does it mean, timing of species interaction? For example, there are few insect which has the role of pollination, and suppose there is a flower that blooms in a specific period. But what happen if the flower is not able to bloom in that particular period? Is the insect is able to feed himself? No. That's why in this way the disturbed food webs can be affecting the timing, the impact of food webs on species interaction. This is just because of the climate change, and this increases the mismatch in predator-prey relationship and food availability. So if the food is not available, so first of all we need to think about that. Every organism is depend upon another organism in the sense of food chain, because it is a food of another organism. For example, the plant it makes its food by own mechanism, but the insect that feeds on the plant, so it is depend upon plant. It is called as for example herbivore, and some other insect eats that insect, so it is a carnivore. So the insect is got eaten by the frog, and the frog is got eaten by the snake. The snake is got eaten by the eagle. So this is kind of food chain. So every organism is depend upon any different organism. This is the food chain, and when the food chain becomes more complicated, more complex, it is called as food web. So because of the change in the disruption in the environment or the climate, the impact of food web and food species interaction can be affected. This disruption can lead to cascading effect. That means it can happens like series of effect, increasing the risk of extinction for vulnerable species and compromising the stability of entire ecosystem. For example, some vulnerable species are present, some high risk endangered species are present in that area. So what will happen? The chances, the probability of extinction of that organism occurs. So we are not able to see that organism in the wild or in the nature or maybe on the planet Earth. So the extinction and population decline. For example, I will give example of some animals such as polar bears, Arctic foxes, migratory birds, and amphibian. These are the most vulnerable. They're vulnerable means these are most at the risk of extinction. So what happened? The polar bear, Arctic foxes, these are present in the uh, colder region. So what will happen if the because of the higher rising in the temperature, so the ocean or in the ocean the glacier will melt, and it will be difficult to the organism survival of the polar bears and Arctic foxes. Along with that, the migratory birds. So the birds which do migration from one place to another, some birds a few thousand kilometers also. Uh, so there are few species of the bird they can travel for thousands kilometers. So in the amphibians also, these are the high risk because of the extinction because of they are more vulnerable and the population also decline. For example, in the, when we consider about the anthropogenic activities, human activities, the most of the habitat loss taking place, and the severe threats of habitat loss is at most at the risk to the amphibians. So because this causes the population to decline and the species ultimately become vulnerable and endangered, critically endangered, and it will vanish from our earth. Along with that, we yesterday talked about the coral bleaching. So what is coral bleaching? I will explain again. Rising ocean temperature cause coral to expel the symbiotic algae that provide them with nutrient and colors, leading to bleaching and ultimately death. So what is happening here? Because of the rising temperature, yesterday I have told you that the coral are very sensitive to the rise in the temperature. Even though a very small amount of rise in temperature can alter their life. So what is happening here? The coral lives with the symbiotic algae, zooxanthellae. So it is a zooxanthellae. It is present. It lives along with the coral that gives the color to the coral reefs. So it provides nutrient and color to the coral reef. But because of the bleaching, because of the higher temperature, so the it ultimately dies. So the coral becomes white in color. The coral become white in color. So it is called as coral bleaching. So next is melting glacier. So warming temperature are causing glacier and ice sheets to melt at unprecedented rate, leading to rising sea levels and habitat loss for polar bears and other Arctic wildlife. So melting of glacier, it is causing unprecedented rate. So we are not able to predict how faster these rates are going to how faster the glacier is going to melt. So these are the threat to the survival of the some sort of wildlife that are present in the Arctic region of our Earth. Along with that, shifts in breeding, migration, and flowering times. Climate change is affecting breeding times of many species. Migratory species are also affected with their migration routes and timing altered, impacting their ability to find suitable habitats and food sources. Plants are also experiencing shifts in flowering patterns, flowering times, affecting pollination processes. So migratory. Just recently, I have told about that. I have talked about on this topic. So migratory species are also affected because of the migration routes, migration timing is altered. So because of the pollution, they are not able to see properly. Because of the climate change, because of the rainfall pattern, most of the time, what happen? The migratory birds seek for a very good breeding site, good site for the breeding purpose, feeding purpose, and nourishment of the young ones. But what is happening because of the climate change? The seasonal variation or the climate is changing very rapidly. So there is a low level of precipitation in the, for example, particular area. So when the migratory birds flew to the that goes float or fly to that particular area, what happened there? There is no food available. There is scarcity of water. There will be no enough place or shelter for breeding, to nourishment of their child. So ultimately, this affecting the breeding pattern, migration of organism. Along with that, the plants are also experiencing the flowering times, blooming time, affecting pollination processes. So next point is desertification. Increased temperature and drought are causing arid region to become increasingly barren, reducing plant and animal life, threatening the livelihood of people who depend on this land. So what is happening? Because of the climate change, low precipitation level, so the land is become barren, reducing plant and animal life, and ultimately threatens the livelihood of people who depend on this land. So this is the direct impact of climate change on the livelihood of the people. The people are not able to survive. The people are not able to cultivate the land. The people are not able to grow some sort of crops in that fertile land because of the unpredictable weather, unpredictable climate change. So this ultimately leads, if this occurs for a very larger more frequently, if this occurs, then the land will be converted into the desert because of the climatic conditions. So while talking about some sort of case studies, I will put forth an example of Great Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef is one of the world's largest and most diverse coral reef system, has experienced significant coral bleaching due to rising ocean temperatures. This bleaching has resulted in widespread damage to the reef, affecting the livelihood of many people and the health of ecosystem. So, Great Barrier Reef. So, Great Barrier Reef is the largest reef. It is present near the Australia. So, Australian continent. So, reef. What does it mean? Reef. Reef means it is a structure which is present in the threshold of the sea, and it contains rocks, sand, and some sort of corals. So this is called as coral reef, and it is a Great Barrier Reef because it is a very large. So it is called as Great Barrier Reef. So because of the rising of ocean temperature, the Great Barrier Reef experienced coral bleaching. Coral bleaching because of the higher rising temperature. This is the best example of impact of climate change on biodiversity. Along with that, when we consider about the rainforest, Amazon rainforest comes in our mind. The Amazon rainforest, a global biodiversity hotspot, is facing increasing threats from deforestation, drought, and wildlife excreted by climatic change. These changes are impacting the vast area of species that depend on the ecosystem, leading to the habitat loss and potential extinction. So Amazon rainforest, it is a global biodiversity hotspot. Most of the oxygen we receive, our earth receives from the Amazon rainforest. So those are known as the lungs, natural lungs of the earth. So these are facing threats of deforestation, drought, and wildfire.